Yep, we're good.
Okay.
Okay, so welcome to Jules for Life podcast, The Vantage Point. Today's topic is music keeping you asleep. Now, yes, the topic is music, but we're also speaking about frequencies, vibration, consciousness, because whether we know it or not, frequencies and vibrations hold an important power over our lives, our mental state, our consciousness, all of these things. So we have on two special guests today that's going to help us break down this topic. One of our guests is Kahun Mantu from the Holy Catholic Church of the Black Messiah International. He's been a Kahun for over 20 years. He is the main representative throughout Europe. He also was a big name DJ by the name of Doug Doug. So he didn't think I knew that name. You know, he's a philanthropist and also a doctor of theology. So we're going to have Kahun Mantu just tell us a little bit about himself, but we also followed by our brother Mandrill here today, who is a nurse anesthetist, and he's been a nurse anesthetist for over a decade. Very experienced with surgeries, dealing with consciousness, and so many other things. So they're going to break it down. They're going to help us out because
Yes.
we got to get this information out. So can you both please just give us a little background about yourself? Tell us how long you've been doing what you're doing and all that good stuff.
Namaste. Do you mind if I start first, Brother Mandrill?
Certainly.
Okay. Um, ooh, music. Everybody grew up with music, but I grew up with music as in the sense of coming from the Caribbean. We had what's called sound systems. I don't know whether you affiliate with sound systems, but it's like big speaker boxes, playing music, DJ with his own system basically, and it was not just playing the music; it was the whole system, meaning how the system sound, the amount of power you had, and the following. So that was where I started off with music. Um, I went into electronics, and when I went into electronics, I became an electronic engineer. I was dealing with studio mixers, assembling studio mixers, testing studio mixers, and wiring studios. So that was where I got into music. Then I got into producing music. I was producing music in main studios, not like what people are doing today when everything's on your computer. No, you had to go in a studio with a massive desk, sit there with an engineer, and use proper techniques. I smile when I say proper techniques because, sorry, everybody today, any sort of sound you require, you go on the computer and you say, "Give me the sound." No, before, for instance, if you wanted a sound that went shh, you had to take a tape, spin it over backwards, do a clap, turn the tape, turn it back over. It took a technique.
Okay, so you're like original OG. You like, look,
Yeah,
I've been doing
Right,
this
actually doing it.
yeah. So in doing sounds, you have to read. Sometimes you have to get bottles and make a sound with a bottle and change it up. We have to create sound. So I went through that. And then I got into teaching, and I've been teaching doctrine for nearly 30 years now, I say, right? And so I'm fast forwarding because I'll be a while just talking about me and everything I've done. I've been teaching for going on 30 years, and in all different aspects that we need, whether it's from the Bible, whether it's from the Quran, whether it's science, whether it's just dealing with social studies and so forth, we deal with that aspect of it. And also helping to heal people, as now we have the Tree of Eternal Life Storm. And in that, I've had to now learn about herbal medicines, and all of it still relates because people, even though they need healing, a lot of times they also need advising of what to eat, when to sleep, what music to listen to. Things like this we got to talk to people about. So music plays a very important role. I'll leave it there and let Brother Mandrill.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
My name is Mandrill Montgomery. I grew up in Missouri. lived in Atlanta for a little bit. Like she said, I've been in anesthesia for about 13 or 14 years. Graduated from USC School of Medicine down in Columbia. And I started off in general surgery, and then the body has always fascinated me, and I've always looked for a challenge. So I kind of migrated toward cardiac anesthesia in the last 2 or 3 years. And so that is my specialty now. And then outside of that, following Reverend Montu's steps, I've also invested in the Tree of Eternal Life, and also studying atonism.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
So we got some good speakers.
Combination. Yes.
Yes.
So we're going to definitely be able to intertwine you both specialties in this conversation today, because we need you both. So we appreciate you for coming on. Welcome to the Vantage Point. So let's get into it. So the first question I want to ask you, Mandrill. Well, we all know in the conscious community, we constantly hear the term "stay woke." I'm woke. We hear this all the time. So based off your definition of being woke or being asleep, how would you define that? What exactly does that mean?
Good question. I think that being woke is not a definitive state. I think that in regards to anesthesia and social consciousness, the two aren't exactly the same, because I think in the OR, there are clear indicators for whether someone's awake or not. There are clear measures. Whereas outside of the OR, in our own personal lives, consciousness is always relative. I think we're always learning. I thought I was awoke 5 years ago before I was introduced to atonism.
We all did.
So I think it's a relative state, and I think we're always learning, we're always growing, we're always expanding.
Okay. Yes. So I'm glad, and I smirked when you said it's a big difference from the operating room and outside of the operating room, because that was going to be my next question. And how are they different from the process that the body goes through when you're putting them under, the anesthesia, of them being conscious and unconscious? The process of that, how does that differ from what we would say being woke or asleep? Is it, you're saying it's different, so that answered my one question, but what's the process for you in the operating room?
I think there's some things that are the same. I think there are some parallels. For example, with the induction of anesthesia, like if you're going to have a procedure, you come to the OR, we bring you back, we let you breathe some oxygen, and we take you from being completely awake to what we call induction. Okay. And then once you go through that induction stage, your body goes through hemodynamic changes. You go through, we call it a second stage of anesthesia. You go through tachycardia, confusion, loss of reflexes. And then once you go through that stage, you enter a plane of anesthesia where everything calms down and you get into a nice, your breathing becomes more regular, your pupils become equal again. So I make that parallel because I think sometimes when we, outside of the OR, when we are trying to become more conscious, when we're trying to discover ourselves, I think that sometimes it is a process. And I think like in the OR, we go through that induction stage where you're kind of overwhelmed, and then, you feel like all kind of things are happening to you. You know what I'm talking about. You feel like you're being attacked, and there's always a lot of stress as you're going through different stages of anesthesia. So in that regard, they are the same, I think.
Right.
But like I said, in the OR, there's definitive ways you can measure consciousness. When you come in there, I put a little monitor on the forehead. Okay. And what it does is it gives you it measures electrical activity, and it uses the algorithm to summate that electrical activity into a number. So in other words, when you come in, you may be at 100. And then as I start to induce anesthesia, I can watch you go from 95, 90, 80, 70 into a state of anesthesia. So that's easy because I can see it. It's subjective.
Right.
But as we know, outside of the clinical setting, it's not always that clear.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't know where we are.
Right, exactly. You
Right.
think you're at a certain level, and then you find out some new things, and it's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know.
I was
how to
99.
Yes. And I think
Okay.
that's the perfect statement, because I was going to ask Mantu if you can please relate frequency to these different states of consciousness for us. Kind of explain how frequency correlates with these different states of consciousness.
First, I'd like to get one of those things to put on people that they could
I
look
know.
around the place and we could see whether they're conscious or not.
Yeah. Like, look, before you
I don't
come
know.
over
That hurts
here,
your feelings because you think you're supposed to be 100. You go in there.
Right.
Because you're constantly talking to people and you believe that you're talking to someone that's conscious, and then you realize
They're not.
fast asleep.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying partial, I mean fast asleep.
Yes.
You're dealing with alpha wave, beta wave, and so forth, right? And they'll talk to you about different waves, different to say, well, as you're falling asleep, the vibrations change. And when you reach down to that alpha wave, they'll say, okay, now the person's asleep, and so forth. That's the wavelength of how the brain is working. So the brain is now working with all these different terminologies of between 20 and 15 wavelengths. And when they're talking about wavelengths, okay, they use what's called an oscilloscope. An oscilloscope, I'm just trying to make it clear. You see a waveform, right? The waveform is taking what's called an oscillator, something that's sending out a signal, and it's showing you the wave. And depending on how fast it's moving, depends on how awake you are. Clear? So
Yes.
The slower it gets, the further down you're falling asleep. It's like you'll hear a cat going. And I don't know if you've ever heard when the cat's doing it, and it relaxes you as well. Because I grew up with a cat when I was young, and the cat used to sit on my lap and it used to purr, and it make you start to want to fall asleep. So it's taken from the beta to alpha, going down, relaxing you. It's no different than when you're when you're chanting, right?
Okay.
And you start chanting, and as you're chanting, you're making the sounds. You start relaxing, but you don't fall asleep. You stay in that state where it goes theta or theta, and you're on that level where you're now chanting, and you're relaxing, but you're not asleep. People think that a form of meditation means that you have to literally fall asleep. No, you can be wide awake, moving, and still be in a form of meditation. There's different degrees. So there's different degrees of when we say people are awake based on their vibration, on the vibration of the brain. But the whole body is vibrating. So a lot of times we think it's just the brain only. No, the whole makeup of you is vibrating. So when you're hearing music, when you're hearing sounds, it can affect your organs, and your organs can start to affect the mind. And now we start to relax. It's not always attacking the brain, it can attack the body. So when we're dealing with vibrations, they'll say, or they'll teach you bass, anything from 14 hertz audible, 14, 15 hertz, and then you go up to what they call the high, the treble, to 20 kilohertz. Anything between there you're listening to, that's all audible sounds.
Okay.
Anything between those audible sounds will affect your body. Depending on how high the decibel loud the music is, that it affects your body. So when we're dealing with sound, it's not just the vibration of the mind, it's the whole body that starts to relax. I'm
Okay.
sure, I'm sure when you want to stop me, otherwise I'll just go.
Oh no, I just want to know,
Yeah.
did you know this information when you were a DJ? Because I think you were using this to your advantage with you going through everything. Did you know how frequencies can affect the body, can affect people? Because as a DJ, you're literally tuning people in and out to different frequencies or able to control the crowd. So how was that experience? How did
Okay,
you
that's very
actually
good.
see it?
That's a good question. It wasn't so much I didn't know the science, I knew what to do.
Okay.
Okay, if you're playing some hyper music,
Mm.
something like bashment, something like what we call jungle, what they call garage, and you play something that's very high, people are jumping up and down. Unless they're under drugs, after a while, that will become boring.
Mm.
So people, it's like if you're massaging the mind and the body, you've got to take them on waves.
Roller coaster, right?
So you take them up, you bring them down, you take them up, and you've got to feel them. It's
Mm.
like when you're playing music, you're looking at the crowd and you're feeling the crowd and you're jeering the crowd and you're getting the crowd to jump and scream and flash the lighters and do all kind of things. And you're getting that vibration back from the crowd. And you're now saying, well, okay, now I'm going to give you something rapid. I'm going to make you scream and go crazy. And you do that, but you know it will only last for a period of time. Then you got to switch it and take it down.
Mm.
Change the genre of the music, take it down, bring it down, and again you pick it back up. So it's a thing that you're moving people up and down, because if you stay in one vein for too long, it gets boring.
Boring. Mm.
When you go into techno, they stay on this all
Yeah.
night,
Yes.
but that's because they're on drugs.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
They're on
And that's
ecstasy and
fueling
those
them.
sort of things. So they don't care, and they just dance, and they'll dance till they're tired, and they go outside and pop another pill or do something else, and then they come back in. That's their break.
Mm.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So no, I didn't know the technical side of it, but it helped me in the sense of when I started to teach, and I realized that as I'm talking to you, I can't just talk to you like this all the time. I can't keep just doing this.
Right.
It's the same principle. I've got to talk to you like this, and at times I've got to, okay, now, the same principle.
Okay.
You're,
Okay.
you're teaching, so you got to teach in a way that it keeps the people interested. Tell a few jokes, get hyper, and it's not that I'm doing it on purpose now. It's just instinctively. I know when to change, and you feel. So when you're connecting, you feel the audience, and you know, okay, I'm going to talk this way, then I'm going to switch to that, then I'm going to tell two jokes, and then I'm going to take it under here, and I'm going to bring it back up, and you just keep doing that, and people sit there and go, wow. And they don't know what's happening to them, but
Right.
you're actually massaging them and getting through to them.
Mm.
Otherwise, if you just stay there going, blah, 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 they're only going to hold that much and throw away the rest.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whew. All
That's
right.
okay, because I really, sis, I want you to ask about this one thing that we talked about.
Oh yeah. See, no, they gotta wait for that. So they gotta wait for that.
Because it's one thing, we're definitely going to ask you this question. It's one thing to be at a party and getting hyped to the music and going with the flow of the music. But what we want to know in this episode is, what is it about music specifically that changes the way people interact with other people outside of a party, and how they interact or how they move throughout their daily lives? Is it the rhythm? Is it the tone? We know it has a lot to do with the frequency of the music, but we want to know, what is it specifically that will make one person? You got to ask this question, sis. So we'll ask it in a moment. What is it that will make one person who is this way listen to something and automatically become
Like
this
stay
way?
on that frequency. You're saying what would make them stay on that frequency outside of the music? They leave the party, it goes off.
They
What
leave the
makes them stay
party
there? Is that what you're asking? Yeah.
and they are in a different light. They're not even the same person. This music has changed something within them and basically changed them a little bit. But before you answer that, We want to take a quick break and we'll come back. And whoever wants to answer it, you're open to answer it. So we'll be back
Take a
in
quick
a moment.
commercial break. Yes, and we'll be right back. This is the Juice for Life podcast.
The Vantage Points.
The Vantage Points.
Okay, hold on.
It's the anticipation for me. It's like, Here we go. This is an international celebration of Black excellence. Our 2022 International Culture Day. You don't want to miss this. I mean, you will get the best of Trinidad, Bahamas, London, and Greenville, South Carolina, all on one channel. Did I mention the Dr. Speak in our world reality series featuring our very own Reverend Dr. A.J. Foreman? Music, food, fun. You're not going to want to miss this. June 25th, mark your calendar and head over to www.journeyhomegroup.com to get your tickets today. Okay, welcome back from that very short commercial break. We wanted to kind of do that because we know that there is a event coming up very, very soon that you all will be speaking about later on in this interview, International Culture Day, that everybody has been excited for. So we kind of just wanted to take the opportunity to play that on your behalf so that people know what's going on, and I know you will give further details later. So before we get into International Culture Day, before we get further into this interview, sis, did you want to bring in Brother Mandrill and then we switch it back? And it's just a lot to cover, so we're trying to cover it within this short amount of time because we want to ask him this, ask him that. So
yes, so
because it's a lot to cover.
Back to the question. I'm going to ask you one more time to refresh everything, and I'll give it to Mandrill. And then whoever wants to go, you could take it home. But basically, we know that the media has a lot to do with the way that we interact, the way that we behave. Mm-hmm. Now, we want to know exactly what is it about music that plays a part in that. So we'll start with you.
I think that well, let me give you an example first. I have a lot of I have several fluent African-American friends, okay? Their children grew up in great homes, two-parent households, yet their frustration, and we sit down and we have this conversation, is no matter what they do, these kids, daddy's making over $1 million, but they want to sell drugs. They want to be in the streets. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the conclusions we came to is I think that the music kind of speaks to the subconscious. I think that if you're listening to music, especially over a tone, you know how musical we are as a people. I think that speaks to your subconscious. And if all day you're hearing negative things about women, if all day you hear about selling drugs or adverse or dangerous lifestyles, and I think that subconsciously you subscribe to that without even being aware of it. If that makes sense. Like a lot of these brothers, they're in the situation. They don't have to be in that situation. They don't need to be in that situation, but they're just doing it because it's something that they just listen to all day, every day. And I think it's almost programming.
Okay, now knowing this, my question is, knowing that, do you guys use that in the surgery room? Is there any music being played ever in any type of situation like that? And how are you also indicate what's going on with the person? Is there any awareness in their eyes? Do you see any type of changes going on that way also?
Good question. So in the OR, music it depends. I think OR, the music serves its purpose because you want the surgeon to be in the correct mental state. We want him to be focused. So whatever it is to get him in the zone, we want him to focus on that. If he listens to certain music at home, we want him to listen to that, and we kind of recreate that in the OR.
Okay.
Or her.
Gotcha.
Okay, so they kind of fill that out on the paperwork. You guys actually ask them when they're doing their, when you give them the documentation and they're writing it down, you're asking them what kind of music they listen to?
Oh, no, but what I'm referring to is the patients are unconscious. The patients are asleep. So the music is not important to them. What I was referring to is we play music in the OR for the surgeon and the staff to listen to.
Okay.
Because it creates a harmony. It creates a balance.
So they can focus.
Okay.
So that they can focus and be effective.
Okay, got you. Okay. All right.
And I was going to say another thing in regards to Montu earlier was talking about rhythm. And one of the things that I find amazing from a cardiac standpoint is how important rhythm and vibration is. Because the heart sets the rhythm for the body, right? In order to do bypass surgery, we have to arrest the heart. We have to stop the heart, and we have to put you on a bypass machine. Even though we deliver the same amount of pressure that the heart delivers, we still run into a lot of post-op complications because the body, the tissue, is accustomed to that pulsatile flow. So without that pulsatile flow, you put yourself at risk for renal problems or neurological complications afterwards because the brain and the kidneys receive so much of the cardiac blood flow. So to me, it's just always amazing how, as humans, we try to replicate that rhythm of the heart unsuccessfully.
Okay. So, and that makes a lot of sense. Now, at this time, I do, sis, want you to go into what we was talking about the other day, because I'm very interested in that.
Okay. All right. So, the wait is over because she is.
Let's go. Let's go.
Bring everybody into the conversation because this is too.
She's trying to shy away from it. Like, ask this question.
Okay. So we were having a conversation. We were talking about, I said, these two speakers that are coming on, we were just speaking about your experience. And I said, I want to ask this question because we watched both of your previous interviews. And on one of your interviews, Kahumantu, you spoke about when you were a DJ and how it kind of put people in a trance, especially people who were taking drugs, alcohol, etc. Right? And I think you said it was someone you knew. And after they left the rave, they left the party, they went home and she got into it with her mom and she killed her mom. Right? Yeah. So I kind of wanted to know what exactly is happening frequency wise. Is it necessarily that they're in a trance, or does them being in that state of trance then allow access for adverse forces to take control of them? And it's not necessarily them, but we just want to know what happened, what's going on. Can you explain that exactly what you're talking
about? Okay. First, let's understand what music is. Because when we're saying what music is, a lot of the times we don't realize that all sound can make music, but not all sounds in tune with you, with us. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So everything vibrates. Everything vibrates, and that's due to polarity. So everything is moving, everything is vibrating. As it's vibrating, if you find their frequency, you can control that person. So, for instance, right, the example I gave it before, and I'm sure we all can remember this. You'd be out in a rave and you'd be partying with somebody and you'd be dancing with someone and you get sexually aroused because you're dancing with somebody, and then you listen to that record, and if you're into the slow jam, those records will make you feel ooh, and they'll give you a sexual vibe, and the man just laughing because yeah, that's me. if you're dancing with a sis, for instance, I remember years ago when I first started, I was young, very young, and I can still remember dancing with this sister, and she left her perfume on my collar, and I went home smelling this perfume and thinking, whoa, I couldn't wait for next week to get back there. And that played in my mind, and I remember the record, and that played back in my mind. So your mind has a way of replaying music. Now, at times, depending on the music you're listening to, and depending on the frequency of that music, like for instance, most music today, it's vibing off of 440 hertz. And once they take you to that 440 hertz, it shifts you. It's not what we're in tune with. And they go past that. The 432 hertz is more in tune with nature and the universe. So certain reggae music and certain old classics, and certain soul and slow jam, they're on that 432. Now, sometimes they'll take the hip hop, or they'll take a lot of the new wave jazz or the garage, and they'll take you on another frequency. At this point, right, within us, we have to understand all of us are carrying parasites, all of us, right? Whether it's a parasite that's dealing with the mental, whether the parasite that's dealing with your organs, whether the parasite that's dealing with the spiritual, whether the parasite that's dealing with your emotion, there's different forms of thousands of parasites that are within your body. And based on what you eat, what you drink, what you listen to, what you see, right? What you taste, all these things can trigger a certain parasite. And these parasites have the ability of controlling you.
Right. We refer to as the microgenome, and there's a lot of research right now just kind of underlining exactly what he's saying, and just trying to define the impact that the gut and those parasites has on mentation.
Right. So here you are listening to a certain music, but it stimulates these parasites. And these parasites that are in you now everyone's going, well, whoa, what am I supposed to do? Okay. And these parasites now, they're stimulated, and there's parasites that control the mind, the brain. And now here you are, and you've come out of the rave, and you're hyper. You're kicking because you've been smoking or you've been drinking. Most people don't go to a rave without drinking. So now you're hyper, you're jumping up and down, and even though you've left there, you see the youths, especially going home, and they're constantly causing trouble on the street because that vibration is walking with them. They'll get into fights. They'll break things. They'll go home. They'll argue with their mother. They'll argue with their father, or they'll get into it with their spouses. The parasites that are within you are now causing this within you.
So you're saying we were hijacked?
Yes, of course. Right. So when we're talking about that's one aspect of it. Now the aspect of it that influence your mind, the vibration that is sent out from the music has affected your brain. Get parasites. The fact that your brain vibrates on a certain frequency, and if we can allow the brain to go off of the vibration, we can infiltrate your mind. The Heart Project studies this. The Heart Project looks at this. Tavistock Institute look at these things. For instance, if you was to go into marketing, one of the first things they'll teach you is about psychology, because they'll teach you that if you're trying to market a product, then you need to know what frequency or how frequent to let the advert. Think about it. How frequent we need this advert to be playing, and what sort of rhythm that you need to be going over and over to make sure that when you walk down the road, you see that and you go, oh, I'm going to buy that. And you don't really want it, but you're going to buy it because it's constantly there. McDonald's never stopped advertising. Everybody knows McDonald's, but they never stop advertising.
Yes.
And they're targeting the children. So they're sending a certain frequency. So when we're saying about that, when you come home and and you're like, you got your partner at home, and you've been out, and you've been raving, and then you come home, and then you decide to tear your partner apart. I'm putting it that way, blood. Because you've come through the house, and you've been sexually aroused, and you've come in and you've jumped on your partner, and he or she's going, "What the hell happened to you? You got stimulated."
Mhm.
Okay.
And now you've got to release. You've got to release those adrenaline that's within you, those cortisol that's within you running crazy. You've got to release them. And because we don't listen to real music, most of us, we get caught up in this.
Mhm.
So when you're asking about these things, yes. And this sister, when she came home, and I speak about the sister, she got in it with her mother and kicked her down the stairs. Afterwards, she was like, I don't even remember doing it.
She don't remember doing it.
No.
In a trance.
Yes.
But it's not so much a trance, it's that she was so caught up in the vibration. She was smoking and drinking that normally smoke and drink wouldn't do that to you. But enhanced with the music, the vibration, though
Now
she got
you gave
hijacked.
someone else something
got
else
hijacked.
control over you.
Wow. So, okay, let's just take a second. So now with knowing how important frequency is, the different frequencies with the music that we're listening to, for someone who wants to stay focused, that's the mindset they want to be in. They want to focus, they want to relax. What is the frequency of music they should be listening to, and what exactly would that be? Would that be jazz music? What type of music would that be?
Mandrill, you want to come in? Or you want me to continue?
I prefer jazz and reggae, but it's up to you.
Jazz is a great music to listen to, but not everybody likes jazz. Reggae is a great music to listen to, but not everybody likes reggae, right? R&B is a great music to listen to. Maybe I'm naming these music because these are good music. Original hip hop is a good music to listen to, and everybody likes hip hop. I can't stand hip hop, but I'm just saying all of these on the right frequencies are good. But there's got to be time when you even get away from those and just listen to quality playing instruments, like the oud and the kora and a proper acoustic guitar and drums. These are the sort of things. Yeah, you got to at time just. And especially when you wake up in the morning, those are the sort of things you should be tuning your body to. And before you go to sleep, those are the sort of things you should be tuning your body to. You shouldn't be going to sleep and then you say you're putting your head down. You're gonna have a nightmare because you've woken something up in the mind. So we've got to overstand the sort of music, but we've been conditioned now so that the younger heads don't like the music that we listen to. Meaning, I grew up and my father would hear the music and say, "What kind of rubbish that y'all listen to?" And that's for the people that don't know. I said, "What kind of rubbish are you listening to?"
Right?
Okay. Right. But I enjoyed his music. I enjoyed my music. My daughter enjoys our music
because most younger ones don't.
A lot of younger ones wouldn't. But we made sure that she listened to these music, so she enjoys these music. But she still listens to the Afrobeat and everything. And I like Afrobeat. Just don't take too much of it. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We don't get ourselves in. We can't say, okay, we're only going to listen to this sort of music and that's it. No,
right.
That's not real. We're going to experience all kind of music, but we're going to keep ourselves balanced in such a way that we understand that there comes a time when you've got to sit back and just listen to some nice music, some calming music, some relaxing music that chills you. You can't just be listening to hyper. It's the same way as we said in the dances. You can't just keep listening to hyper. It will affect you and slow you.
Right.
So it's not say reggae is good music, proper reggae music, good music. Soul, proper soul, good music. R&B, music. Original hip hop, good music. Jazz, good music. And we could go on and drop the country and western. Not bad.
Okay.
It's not bad, right? They're trying to imitate us.
Right. Okay.
I think what's important is you said, and the ones that you mentioned, the lyrics are important. I think that in rap music today, it's the lyrics I think that causes the problems. But I think if you listen to the same thing over and over and over again, I think it informs your subconsciousness. And I think if, for example, if I'm looking for a red Buick, right? If I'm buying a car and looking for a red Buick, when I go outside, all I see is red Buicks. Not that there are more red Buicks on the road. It's just that my perception has changed.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to be aware of what we're allowing into our psyche.
That's real. It's real.
Okay.
Not just the tones, but then also the actual words.
Of course.
Okay. Well,
because when you're listening to lyrics, that does affect you too, of course.
Right.
Because
Subconsciously.
a lot of times we're singing lyrics and we're not even checking what we're singing.
Right.
The mumble rap they have out now, you don't even know what they're saying.
And I think it's clearly programming, because if it was just violence alone, then brothers would be killing everybody. You see brothers killing white men, you see brothers killing Chinese men, but it's all violence that's directed internally toward each other.
Right.
See the difference? So if it was just violence that was inciting, then we'd be attacking everybody. We'd be attacking people who attack us.
Right. But we don't do that.
We don't do that. We're big and bad when we have to deal with each other.
Right.
That's right.
But not the ones that put their foot in our neck.
Yes.
Exactly.
Come on,
that part. That part. That part.
So, I feel like we're skipping over something, so I kind of want to go back just for a second, because it seems as though what Kahumantu went over, just as far as that consciousness and those frequencies, it seems like it kind of happens in the surgery room. So can you explain to us, when a person is coming out of anesthesia, they're still experiencing the effects of the drug, can you tell us about that process? Because we've seen videos, especially recently, where it's like this little boy, he came out, he was cursing his butt off, it was crazy, but he didn't even know what he was doing. So the same way we spoke about a person that does things after and they don't remember it, what is that like on your side? Can you explain that?
What I always find so amazing about that is when they're doing these things, they really believe it. Like they really believe that, you have someone that's coming out of anesthesia, and what I see typically, police officers, people that have been in the Army, if there was a trauma sometime in the past, a lot of times you'll see that at emergence. Sometimes when police officers are coming out of anesthesia, soldiers, sometimes it's so bad and it's so violent. Sometimes you have to give them propofol, put them back to sleep, and like reset, reboot, let's try it again. And everybody emerges differently. But I think that when you go through those stages, to me, it's just fascinating just to see how everybody deals with it differently. And they'll talk to you about people being on the wall and Martians and aliens and look at it as if it's really there. So that's their reality. So if nothing else, that's what I learned from anesthesia is that if there's 7 billion people in the world, there's 7 billion realities, if that makes sense.
Wow. This topic, it can go so many different ways, but I'm so glad and I really appreciate the way you both are breaking it down, basically from the top to the bottom, how the frequency, how the lyrics, how the tones, how the vibrations, the rhythm, how it all plays a part. And not only that, but your frequency, what you're intaking, the drugs, the alcohol, how it all plays a role in how we maneuver, through this world, how we interact with each other, or how music interacts with us. So I love this topic. I mean, I could go on and on about the different things, but we definitely don't want to take too much of you guys' time with that. So before we end, do you guys have any any words to say on how we can become better as a people? How will music, the different music that we listen to, how can we change that so we're more productive in the world?
I think that we should take control of every aspect of our lives. I think that you have to control what you listen to. You have to control the foods that you're exposed to. your environment. I think that we have to be a lot more active in our consciousness, as opposed to just going through life,
Going with the flow.
going with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Montu?
I agree. Understand that those that are in control of music today are not doing it on that for our benefit. That's the first thing we've got to understand. All the major companies are not doing, because we didn't even go into backward masking and things like that, which is another aspect of what they do. When you play music backwards and the music is saying kill your mother, kill your father, and your subconscious grabs those things. That's all part of the industry. So we've got to understand there is, like we said, clean fun, there's clean music, and we've got to be those that create those clean music. We've got to also guide our children and our people to listen to good music. And be those that are ready to stand for what's right, meaning that we can't just sit there and say, okay, because somebody I know and they've made a track and it's a black person or a Nubian person, they made a track, we're going to support that track, and we know the track is really something derogatory towards either male or female. We've got to acknowledge these things. So we're going to start saying, you know what, let's pick and choose the things that we're going to align ourselves to, whether it be the lyrics, because of the lyrics, whether it be because of the music, the vibration of the music, whether it be because of who produced it, and realize that if we gather ourselves and put ourselves in the position where we control everything we see, everything we eat, everything we listen to, everything that around us, we've got to get ourselves to that stage where we control all that we produce and produce it correct, then we'll be better off. But if we're not in that position, then we're open for the attack and the abuse that we're going through right now.
Right. Agreed. Both amazing.
Control things on a personal level, but then also as a people, we have to learn to control our destiny.
Right.
Well, that was great. That's great, because we always hear on the Vantage Point, we always like to shed light on, what's really going on, and definitely give tips and solutions how we can move forward in the right way. That way it benefits us as a people. So that's definitely the objective of all of our episodes. Although this episode is about music and how music is keeping us asleep, it's more to it than just that. So I'm glad you guys touched on the food and everything else with that.
Tree of eternal life.
And the tree of eternal life.
Part of that
I'm like, what's going on here? Love it.
Economic empowerment.
Is that shirt for sale at your store?
Yes, 2310 East North Street.
Okay, well let's go into that, sis. Let's see what you have to offer. What's new? Oh, we can't hear you, sis.
No, I'm waiting for Mandrill to say, what have you got to offer?
Yeah, what new things is coming up? Tell us about this, the store, the Tree of Eternal Life. If I'm saying it correctly, let us know what's going on.
The Tree of Eternal Life. Our location is in Greenville, South Carolina. There's also one in the UK. There's one in Monroeville, Liberia. We're growing. We're expanding our own destiny, controlling our own narrative and our own consciousness. We always have natural herbs. We have teas. We have natural supplies. Take control of your health. Control your own destiny. Because as I was a nurse for years, and as a nurse, I would give you one pill, then I give you another pill to counteract that, and then I give you another pill for the side effects of that, and then before I know it, you got like a big old cup of pills, making somebody rich, right? And I'm not saying come off your medications, but I'm saying take control of your health. Maybe with the right herbs, ashwagandha, you can slowly decrease your blood pressure, so they can maybe cut your medications in fourth, and then in half, and then come off of it. moringa if you want to control your diabetes. But we can have a whole show just on that alone.
Sure can.
Great,
So
great.
if you're in the UK, we're in London, and if you want to go online, you can order www.treeofeternallife.co.uk. Right, so you can go there and find everything that Brother Mandrill was talking about in the sense of the herbs and some. It's about our health, and our health is whether mentally, spiritually, emotionally, or physically. It's about our health. So yeah, Tree of Eternal Life. It's got to be. It's a new. I'll say it's a new health killer on the block. That's causing waves.
Right.
Throughout
Love
the
it.
world.
Love it. Love it. One more time for the listeners. Can you give us that website one more time?
Tree of Eternal Life Store.
All right. .com. All right.
And
Love
the other
to
one
hear
is
it.
treeofeternallife.co.uk. Now, what about Cultural Day before we go? International Cultural Day.
Yes, we
You
saw the
can't forget
commercial.
International Cultural Day.
Let's get into that because we did have a commercial. Anything that you guys want to add about that?
Well, for those in the UK, it's like we're doing it predominantly live. You can go online and watch it, but we've got it's a live day. In fact, throughout the world, it's all live. Whether you're in Trinidad, it's live. If you're in Bahamas, it's live. If you're in South Carolina, it's live. But you can watch online. In UK, it's live. It's just that over here, but